Patron requested video time again, and this time I'm talking about the Prince of Egypt soundtrack requested by Jacob Belo. And for clarity, this isn't the movie soundtrack, it's the musical soundtrack. You would think I'd look up any information on this musical, like, at all, but nah, I just went to it blind. And I still don't know anything about it, like who was in it, when did it play. From what I understand, just reading the comments on a couple of the videos on YouTube, it seems that it ran just before COVID hit, so kinda sad. Because I like it, asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. It sounds like it's mostly what I would want in a musical adaptation of the movie, but then, you know, running into some of the issues that I did kind of expect. Like, there are a couple of songs where it's like, did we really need this here? Yeah, it's trying to convey something in the movie translated to the stage, but like the song Faster, it's like, I get it, you're trying to translate the chariot scene to stage, okay, and you want to convey it with music, but I feel like you could easily do that without a whole song dedicated to it, because it just doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't add anything to the story. I feel like it very easily could have been changed into some dialogue heavy prank or something, you know, like the Moses throwing the wine or whatever it is onto the priest. Like, you could do something like that. Like, basically do something to get Moses and Ramses in front of Seti, and Seti to say the weak link line. Thankfully, I didn't feel like the show was bogged down with a lot of songs like this. It was noticeable when your second song was pretty meh. Footprints in the Sand is an interesting song. At one point, I like it because it helps to convey that Moses is pretty happy being the second son and not having all the pressure Ramses has put on him, but then also kind of wanting a little bit more. Like, wondering, is he just going to fade away into history? Oh boy, that irony. But I guess I also feel like it goes on a little longer than it needed to. Like, the show, it's odd for me because I feel like it picks up bits and pieces from the movie that were not necessarily brushed over, but more like dropped in, but unexamined, like undrawn out. And then this soundtrack tries to expand on those points. Like, what does Moses feel being the second son? How he must feel having to, by definition, be on a different path from his beloved brother and his adoptive family. As the song goes, having the rest of his life to live with what he's done and has helped facilitate. But then, I'm kind of torn because I saw that in the movie and I didn't feel like I needed more. I didn't feel like I needed it to be expanded on or drawn out. I was happy with what I got because I was able to fill in the rest. But then again, I can see someone really liking this because not everyone fills in the gaps like I do. And that's not a brag, it's just basically saying that everyone experiences media differently. And I think one of the biggest problems I have with the soundtrack is that I've seen the movie first. I keep running into, even though I try not, the problem of I've seen the movie, and so I've seen it done in a way that I really like, and so everything gets compared to it. It's a thing that set the bar for me, the movie, and now listening to the soundtrack, I can't help but keep going back to, well, how'd they do it in the movie? How do I like it in comparison to how they did it in the movie? It's a bad way to analyze new media, and I hate it, but I don't know how to get away from it. Like, I feel like there didn't need to be the, oh, Pharaoh freed everyone fake out that we got with On My Side. Like, yeah, I get it. Pharaoh Ramses is trying to get the thing that he wants, which is ultimately to be with his brother again. But it ends up kind of a time killer. I'm stuck thinking of the movie or the Ten Commandments, seeing Moses go try to plead his case to Ramses, and Ramses being like, and basically trying to punish everyone else on Moses' behalf. I feel that's just a lot more effective than Ramses having to change his mind, which, unfortunately, because this is only a soundtrack, I lose a lot of the dialogue that connects the songs together. Like, I don't understand why Ramses necessarily changes his mind. Like, maybe Nefertiti, reminded him that he can't be a weak link and so don't free the slaves. I imagine that's probably what happens, given her song, Need to Be Heartless. I didn't look up the lyrics or the song titles. And just based off the role that I know she plays in the Ten Commandments. It's like at once, I don't mind Ramses' struggle coming from like within, trying to fight with outside interference, trying to get him to go one way, but him wanting to go another way that, you know, goes along with Moses. But it kind of takes away from Ramses' inner struggle. It doesn't feel like he's truly internalized the fear of being the weak link when other people around him are telling him not to be one. Like, I found it more effective when Seti said it once, and then for the rest of the movie, we see Ramses referencing that line, referencing the term weak link, seeing how it has bled into how he sees himself and what he's trying not to become. That might be more of a personal preference to me, and getting back to the, well, I saw it done in a way that I like already, so this is bad. I think something that I also probably should have done before recording this was look up a plot synopsis so then I can get all the in-between dialogue connecting tissue to the songs, but nah, this is more fun. I will admit though, not doing so does probably negatively affect my enjoyment of the soundtrack, but then also I can kind of fill in the bits. I can fill in things enough to where I feel like I mostly get the gist, and it's not like not having the context has made me hate it. It's made me more curious, if anything. It's made me withhold certain opinions rather than give them out now and be proven wrong later or something. I'm very curious what's going on with Ramses' wife, and I want to know more about the role she and Ramses and Moses' mom play. Well, mom like Moses' adopted mom. Because both women are really not characters in the movie. Like Moses' adopted mom, she kind of plays a little bit of role in finding him and then also trying to reassure him that this is where you're supposed to be. But that's about it. Just something more for me to think about as I inevitably keep listening to the soundtrack recording. Especially because there's a lot of things I really do like. For instance, I am so glad Seti and Moses got to actually talk about the things that Seti did that basically led Moses to the palace. Seti trying to justify the genocide he facilitated and Moses having to come to terms with a history that he's basically lived with but never really understood or considered until now. I also like in the song Never in a Million Years that we get to see Moses being happy as just a simple sheep herder. I like seeing him be happy and satisfied with his lot in life before basically fate comes and rips it from him, because it's a nice juxtaposition to what he's going to have to do and what his true fate is. He wants to just be a simple sheep herder with his wife and his new family, but God says otherwise. And at the core, I think what this show does right, that was also one of my favorite parts in the movie, is the pull of fate. How the hands of fate basically force people together or apart. That's kind of the tragedy of Ramses especially. In both versions of Prince of Egypt, he just wants to be with his brother. He loves his family and just wants things to be as they were. But they can't. Moses can't let that be the case. Moses has a job to do, and it unfortunately conflicts with what Ramses is supposed to be doing. They are by definition on opposing sides, and it doesn't seem like there's anything they can do to reconcile it, because every time they think they're close to coming to an agreement, life just pushes them away. I like how in the movie that it was more of an inner turmoil thing, like an inner force pushing them away, whereas here in the soundtrack it seems to be more of outside hands doing it, outside influences. I just prefer my interpersonal trauma a little bit more than we live in a society. I greatly enjoyed the chorus singing God's lines and being the voice of God. It expands on an effect the movie was trying to capture by having multiple people, multiple male voices speaking at once to be the voice of God. But then it expands on it with so many diverse sounding voices, basically really making it feel like this isn't one person. You can't imagine what God looks like because God is like everything. It was a great effect and a wonderful use of their chorus. I also love how they changed Playing with the Big Boys Now, or whatever that song's called, because, yeah, it was a goofy little interlude in the movie, and, you know, it's fine, but also mad, let's get back to the other much better songs. But then here, they take some of those lines and have it as a counterpoint to the chorus singing the plagues. You hear this tension of these two opposing factions, one being like, this is your punishment for going against God, and then the other being like, your God is not more powerful than our gods. We can do what you do and then do it better. Unfortunately, I am dearly missing my reprise of All I've Ever Wanted here. One of my favorite parts of the movie version is hearing Ramses and Moses voice their turmoil, wanting to go back to the way things were, but then also being mad because the other won't just see it their way. You who I called brother, how can you have come to hate me so? Like, I get why they use the song that they do instead of the All I've Ever Wanted reprise, because the show is kind of trying to build on its own tunes, its own songs. But it's also like going back to the I heard it one way and I happen to really be attached that way. So it's hard to compete. And then with the ending, it's interesting. On the face of it, it goes exactly how you remember every version of Exodus ending. I mean, the ones that end with the Red Sea parting and Moses bringing the Hebrews out of Egypt. But it's got a little bit of a twist. Like, Ramses, instead, at the last minute, he's there on the rocks with his army, watching Moses and his people cross the other side, and Ramses is like, you know what, this whole, like, genocide, killing your people, maybe a bad idea. And his army's like, no, we're gonna kill him. Let's go. You don't have any power here, Ramses. They go and try to kill them, like run into the sea, and you know how it goes. They all die, and Ramses is left alone. But instead of being left alone, having to reconcile with his hubris, his desire to not ruin Egypt, ending up ruining Egypt anyways, he's left with a weird sort of inner peace. At the end of the day, he did what he knew was right, even though everyone else would tell him that he has become a weak link because of it. He has basically accepted his fate as the villain in the story. He knows that Moses is just doing what he's meant to do, and Ramses is unfortunately, again, by definition of who he is and what he stands for in his family, he has to be the bad guy. He has to be on the opposite side of the Red Sea from his brother, knowing that he can't get the happy family he wants with his brother, so all he has is the knowledge and the trust that one day he and Moses will just be footprints in the sand. All the animosity that is built over the show will drift away, and they'll always have their brotherly bond, even if they can't physically be together. It's sort of uplifting, sort of happy. I mean, much more happy than the movie was, because, a lot of people still die. A lot of people are hurt because of this. Oh God, and all the families that have lost their children. I mean, Ramses, for one, he lost his firstborn son. But it's okay because the brothers still love each other, even though they can't be together. It's like, one of those, what do you call it? Like, really, tragic, romantic type things. I mean, I'm not shipping Ramses and Moses, but still. It's an interesting twist on their dynamic. It stays just enough similar to the movie, but also alters it just a little bit at least. And I feel like the soundtrack version, more than the movie, can get away with this. It's more justified here because, again, as I was saying, the turmoil of being the weak link for Ramses comes from outsiders. It comes from outside sources. It's a little bit internal because he's receptive to the push of other people trying to get him to basically be SETI again. But it's very clear with songs like On My Side that if Ramses was left alone, he would have given Moses everything he wanted from the get-go. And so it makes sense for him on his own to decide, I don't want to fight my brother anymore. I can't say the same thing for the movie Ramses. It was too wrapped up in his own self-worth to subjugate Moses' people to just let them go because of brotherly love. While in a lot of ways, I still feel like the movie is a more succinct version of the soundtrack. There's a lot fewer songs that just don't go anywhere. All the characters basically hit the same beats. I still kind of like this version because it does a thing that I look for when I go to different versions of the same work. Changing it just enough to transform it, adding its own ideas into the work. That's why I keep going back to the Ten Commandments, the Prince of Egypt, and now the Prince of Egypt soundtrack for the musical. While they keep the main story beats the same, they altered the dynamic of Moses and Ramses. What's it like when they're basically always at odds? What's it like when they're like bestest brothers, but then unfortunately fate just pulls them apart? What's it like if they're bestest brothers, but they have their own emotional baggage preventing them from being together, plus the hands of fate trying to separate them? Again, this is not my favorite version of the story. I think I still prefer the movie over this. Then again, I haven't heard the dialogue that's supposed to go in between these songs. I haven't seen it done. But just from what I've heard, I feel like I kind of lean more towards the movie because I like the succinctness of it. How it hints to these things that the musical tries to expand upon that, for me personally, I don't really feel needs to be. Oh, one last thing, Jethro's voice in Heaven's Eyes. I greatly mourn the loss of my deep voice, Jethro. Like the guy they have in the musical, he sings very nicely. I really like his voice, but I'm biased. I just want that deep, rich voice that I grew up with, that I still love. But yeah, I'm glad I got to listen to this. I'm glad that someone not only told me that this exists, but also financially incentivized me to look into it, because honestly, it would have probably taken me a year to look into this and have all these thoughts. I certainly will continue having thoughts about this show as I listen to it more. I find that the more I listen to something and the more I ruminate on it, the more my ideas develop. So maybe one day I'll make a video about it, or maybe not. I don't know, I still have this weird pipe dream where I make a video comparing the Prince of Egypt to the Ten Commandments, so maybe this will be another bit in my arsenal for that. Thank you again, Jacob Bilo, for sponsoring this video, and if you want a video like this, then you can pledge me $15 on Patreon. Pick a topic, and if I don't object to it for some reason, I'll make you a video. Thank you very much for consuming this video, and until next time.